All right, so some things that have taken place over the past couple weeks since realizing how all this works. There's been some challenging things, I guess you could say, good and bad. All right, so first, I mentioned in one of the previous videos, how it's you know kind of like the Matrix. Okay, as soon as you kind of understand how all this works and you start creating uh, a new you, which I'm doing, the some things will start to happen to try and knock you off of knock you back into the old self. The old self, you could say, the ego, whatever you want to call it, trying to keep you where you are and convince you that what you're doing is ridiculous. Why would you think that you can change? And so, a couple things that have happened. As I talked about, I've been sick for a year. I immediately got sick. The Actually, that day I was posting the video on day 300. I had you know um, a runny nose that then turned into kind of like a sickness for a couple days. um, I wasn't bedridden or anything like that. I was still functional, but it was definitely a cold, and I'd been healthy for a whole year. So that immediately, if you're not solid in your knowing, then that could easily just take you out of it, like right off the bat. Like, dude, if this worked, why all of a sudden am I sick? And that's all you have to have, is that little piece of doubt, and then you're done. And then some other things have happened. Like, I've just gotten like weird phone calls from just like things from like the past, like years ago, that people were trying to track me down for like money, just weird like bills like that I completely like it are just like ridiculous. And you know the timing of it, I haven't heard from any of these places in 5-10 years, and then all of a sudden, like multiple at once. So that's kind of obvious when you're ready for it. But if you're not ready for it and you don't know that this is how it works, that could easily be something else that could get you going into those old thoughts of fear and doubt and worry. But it's like, when you just laugh at it because you're kind of expecting it. And then, to top it off, I haven't been I haven't had a stomach illness, I guess you could say, stomach virus, since I was like 12 years old. And my daughter, I have a 10-year-old daughter, she brings them home, once a year at least. And just the other night, Sunday night, woke up in the middle of the night and I got sick. First time in 20 something years. My wife is like, I didn't even, are you kidding me? Like, that's never happened as long as we've been together. I said, I know. Last time that happened, I was on a deep sea fishing in my early 20s. So, you know, that's some of what to expect. All right. Um, I guess those are some things that the Matrix, quote unquote, or my old self, uh, thought to some ammo, that maybe it thinks will knock me off a bit, but no, I know. I know how this works. I know I'm a multimillionaire. And so those are some of the challenges that I've had over the past couple of weeks. Some changes that I've noticed. All right, and I've been talking about this guy Chris the Wiz Miller like the last maybe in a couple of the previous videos I mentioned his name. And so I've been taking some things that he's talked about and mentioning them here. And one of the things that I took from him is I write down this story, like kind of like a resume. If somebody's like asking me who I am, uh, I just write like a little, like in a nutshell, like who I am each morning. It's one of the first things I've been doing. And I started doing it 2 weeks ago. And I've done it every single morning. And in one of the sentences that I have in here, I am a multimillionaire. But I also say I make, thousands every day and millions every year, uh, from my line of work. And so over the past couple days, I've been saying that to myself so much. Like, I'm a multimillionaire. I told you I just have it running in my head, whether it's doing something, for me. Okay, I know you have to have a feeling along with it. But I keep saying it so much and I have it just there all the time that I'm constantly like, even if I'm not in that feeling, there's, times throughout the day, like pockets of the day, where I realize that those are my thoughts. And then it reminds me to like feel myself into that. Oh, yeah, I'm a multimillionaire. Why would I be worried about this bill right now if I was a multimillionaire? No. So, I mean, that immediately changes my body chemistry. And if I had like an ounce of fear or, got taken away into that moment, it immediately brings me back. But also, it doesn't give the, you can't write two stories at the same time. So if I'm constantly thinking and writing my new story, I am a millionaire, I am in perfect health, I have perfect eyesight, I have great relationships, and I constantly have that on repeat, that's the story that I'm writing. So that old story that was just running on default, that story stops. So regardless of whether I'm feeling myself all the time into this new story, what it's doing is it's stopping the old story from repeating. And so what I've noticed is that a couple days ago, I was actually sitting here and I had that going. I'm a multi-millionaire and I make millions every year. And then I was in a moment, I'm not sure what I was doing. I felt this like energy like come from this side, which is kind of like, I think of my left as like my past. That's where I carry my past. I felt like this wave of energy rush over me, like, this is your new past, like, kind of. Since I'm writing this down, I make millions of every year in present tense. It was like, oh yeah, I made millions last year. I make millions every year. It's hard to explain, but it was like, it was wild. Okay. And so that's something new. All right. And that was like, it was like super powerful because I've been able to feel that each day. Not throughout the whole day, but the majority of the day, especially when I'm sitting in this chair, because that's where it happened. And so you know, I keep getting that reminder like here and there. And the more I get the reminder, the more I do it. And the more I do it, the more I do it. So it kind of feeds off itself. So that's pretty cool. Another thing that is happening is that I talked about when you create the new state. So my new state is I'm a multimillionaire. And so I have that on repeat and I'm feeling myself occasionally into it. And because I'm not letting that old story run, I'm not feeling those states anymore. I'm not feeling the doubt. I'm not feeling the fear. Okay. And so what happens when you're creating the new state that I talked about is that you start to get new lines of thought. You start to get new ideas. And so I'm noticing in these same subjects, things that I've been doing for years, I'm getting ideas to tweak like the smallest things. And so I'll look at it, I'll get this idea, and I'll look at it. And some of these ideas are like, why have I not thought to do this before? Or some of the ideas are, wow, I've gotten this idea before, and why did I not act on this before? Because I've known about this. Why did I not realize that it makes this kind of difference? And so that's another thing that you could kind of like, if you didn't know how this worked, you could just brush that aside or just be like, yeah, I guess I'm getting older, wisdom starting to kick in. But I know a lot of people older than me, who struggle still. And so it's not that. And it never has been that. And then probably the biggest thing that has changed, and I mentioned this in the last video, but the last couple minutes, my microphone, I hadn't charged my microphone because I hadn't been using it that much. And so the last 2 minutes of the video, I was kind of, if you could read lips, you could understand it. Other than that, there was no audio. But I talked about how the ideas that you get and the future that you see and whatever comes into your mind as a desire is actually a gift from God. It's a glimpse from God showing you what's possible. It's actually from God, or whatever. It doesn't have to be God, whatever you think God is, whatever you call God. But that's where those ideas and those thoughts and those glimpses are coming from. He's saying, yeah, this could be you. All you have to do is know it. Know it that this could be you and believe it 100%. And stop doubting, stop fearing, and just know it. And so I've gotten to the point where I realize that and I know it. And so now I feel like God is with me. And now I get it. Like, you see these football players and stuff, and people win the championships, and the first, a lot of times the first thing they'll mention is God. And I was one of those people who was kind of like, why does everybody mention God? I wasn't like a God hater. Like, I believed in God, but like, it's wild, like how obvious it is now. And I remember how I used to be, when I wasn't like this. And so that has been the biggest change, because anytime there's something where I feel a moment of doubt or fear, not in my state, but just like on the external for that like moment, I immediately say to myself, that's not my work. That's not my work. That's God. God's got this. That's up to him. Whatever happens, happens. My only work is to focus on my state and keep my internal dialogue what I want it to be. Tell the story that I want. Keep that on repeat in my mind and feel into it as much as I can. And then the rest, the how and the when, is up to God. Because what are you doing when you're asking how or you're asking when? That implies that you don't have it. But the whole key to manifesting is knowing that you do have it. And then you will have it. Love you all.